Siete pronti per la figata del secolo? Ciao a
Ciao.
tutti cinefili e non, siamo qua per una nuova video recensione.
Non la pizza, ma la pinza romana. Guarda te che
Io ho
bella.
sushi. Abbiamo appena visto un film bellissimo.
È bellissimo. Letizia.
Ned Reynolds.
So, good afternoon, Mr. Franco, and first of all, congratulations on the honorary award that you received in person this year at the Sarajevo Film Festival. I know you have a long history with the festival. I think that is the third time you attend the festival there.
I think it's the fifth or
Oh,
sixth time,
Oh, yeah.
because almost all my movies, only one wasn't screened here, so I
So what
attended
are your
it.
feelings about this recognition?
What?
What are your feelings about this recognition?
Well, it means a lot, because if you see the list of people who has got it, it's like Wim Wenders. So we were wondering if I'm the youngest one to the youngest director. Many actors have received it that are younger than I am, but and I'm not talking about if it's a record. It's not that approach. What I'm trying to say is that it's a recognition that takes on account full career, and I hope they're not trying to bury me. I'm very thankful with the festival, because it's to me it's a way of saying you're on the right path. Keep going, keep fighting, and it means a lot. I remember the first time I came here in 2009. I thought, what a special place far away from home. I should take advantage and go, because I'm surely never gonna be invited again. And I think this is the sixth time, and I was head of the jury once too. So I feel at home here.
Yeah, and of course the festival screened your movie New Order from last year, which had his premiere in Venice, winning the Silver Lion. And the movie is a fantasy nightmare presented as a potential future in the tone of a cautionary tale. And of course the movie is set in Mexico, and there are some specific references, but I think it doesn't go deep into the ideology behind the social upheaval you depict. So do you think that kind of depiction in abstract historical term is a strength of your movie and makes it as much as universal as possible was one of your goals?
That was my goal, and I hope it's achieved. At least that's what I get from critics and audiences all around the world. They do tell me this could have been a French movie, or a Greek movie, or Chilean movie, or that they feel pretty much close to it. In the States, of course, while Black Lives Matters was happening, it felt close to home, and with a president like Trump, it made sense to imagine a disaster not far from what I depict. So it was risky, and I made an effort into not going to specifics in terms of ideology, of course, and also it's a movie that doesn't stand for either right or left. It's not as simple as that. It's not either about the good guys and the bad guys. I try to make it much more complex than that.
Yeah, and of course, it's impossible to talk about New Order without mentioning the depiction of violence, which has been subject of much controversy. I think that the movie doesn't show more than it is necessary, and it doesn't rely on the shock factor, which would have likely compromised the film, I think, making it impossible for some viewers to stay focused on what was happening in the scenes. So I would like to ask you, how did you manage to dose the violence and choosing the right time to avert the camera eye? It was all already scripted, or is it something you decided during the shooting phase or perhaps the editing phase?
Mostly was scripted, although on set, for example, all the violence that has to do with the military, they're not actors, they're real ex-soldiers working on the movie as actors. So everything that was scripted changed a lot because they would advise me in a different way. They would suggest much worse things, much more painful than I had imagined. So I even had to tone it down. And most of the violence, as you say, is either off screen or we cut away just at the beginning of it. I don't enjoy shooting violence. I don't suffer either. I just treat it like any other thing, you know, like any other sin. And I definitely don't look for opportunities to abuse it or to abuse the audience patience, because as soon as when I'm watching a movie, if I feel that a director is doing it just for pleasure, you know, it's on his pleasure or her you know, wanting to punish the audience somehow, then I shut off. I immediately get away from the movie. My mind and especially my feeling gets shut down. So I'm cautious about that.
So correct me if I'm wrong, I've read that New Order was shot in almost chronological order, with the exception of some sets such as the hospital, for which there was no other option, of course, than to shoot everything at once. And so you crafted the film as you were going along shooting. Can you tell us a bit more about this process? And do you think that this kind of shooting process takes to a more cohesive and organic movie?
I shoot all of my movies in chronological order. The only one that wasn't shot that way was my very first one that I shot in 2008 because I wasn't the main producer, they kept telling me it was not possible. So since then I produce all my movies and I shoot them the way I want to, and yes, it's very helpful for me and for the actors to work in chronological order. And it always ends up making sense, and it's not necessarily that much more expensive. And this way I keep reshooting throughout the process. You know, I'm editing mainly in the lunchtime, or looking at what we have done on the weekend. And then I go 1 or 2 steps back to reshoot, but I do it within the normal schedule. I never reshoot once the shooting is done, so I don't spend more money that way. Here, for example, we shot the whole wedding up until we destroyed the house, and that was for Marianne, for Nayan Norvin, for Marianne's character was very helpful, and for me too. I don't understand why movies are done in a different way. Thank God I didn't go to film school, so I didn't learn how things are supposed to do. I just make them out of common sense.
Yeah, I think that for the actors also is better that way, you know, because
yeah, especially for them. But I do change. I mean, everything is scripted, but since we're shooting and editing, I do improvise new scenes or include new elements, or realize I shouldn't skip a bit that I had skipped on the script. And then I do otherwise. Some scenes with the editor and we agree there's no point even in shooting it, you know, like, look, it's perfect. If we skip from this point to this point, we don't need to shoot that in between scene.
Yeah. And in your previous film, you had previously often emphasized the length of each shot and a certain restraint in editing. So this film was, I think, a new departure for you in terms of camera movements and directing style. How did you prepare for this?
I realized since I was writing it that it was the only way to shoot it, that it was definitely not going to be like my previous work. But I never impose a way of shooting. I write the script. Of course, I made 5 movies almost in the same way. Although April's Daughter started to be there started to be a shift. But I was writing to shoot in a certain. I don't separate the content from the shape, and in this case I knew there was gonna be like 8 points of views. It was going to be handheld, but my cinematographer is quite careful and elegant and doesn't like nonsense. So he's very disciplined, and we would together prepare every shot carefully. So many are long takes, like 3-minute long takes that don't fit. They don't feel like it, but because the camera keeps shifting from one character to the next in kind of a soft way. I think it helps the pace of the movie. I think weddings are like that. I think it helps to prepare the audience, be unprepared as an audience for when things keep changing and violence arrives to the movie. You don't see it coming because you're immersed in whatever scene you're watching. So it was a challenge. At the same time, I guess I wanted to do something different. There were many things I didn't know how to do, like make the most out of 3,000 extras. So I let the assistant director and my DOP and everyone else help me. So this, out of all my movies, this is the one that really was a collective work. Every movie is, but this we really made as a team.
Yeah, and about the cinematography, I think working with the cinematographer you already knew well was crucial for a film like this. So I'd like to ask you, how is your relationship with him on set after all these movies and after all these years? I think that even your next movie premiering in Venice in a few days is shot with the same DOP.
Yeah. The new one will present in a couple of weeks. Is the fourth movie we made together, and we will keep making more. What can I say? When I needed a cinematographer for Chronic, my usual guy wasn't available, and I thought, whose cinema do I really admire? And this guy, Yves, has worked with Bruno Dumont and Leos Carax and Claire Denis and so on. So I said, those are many of my favorite movies are among the filmography of those directors. Then it turned out that he wanted to shoot the way I shoot because he liked After Lucia and my previous work. So Chronic was more of my thing, the way I used to work. And now I think we loosen up and we are more open, both of us, to find new ways. Again, whatever the script demands, we are not trying to do something original just for the sake of it. We both have very strong personalities. So sometimes, at least once a week, we have strong arguments. Now the crew knows how we are, so it doesn't stress them out. But in the previous movies, they would, people would be surprised that we were shouting at each other. I never shout to anyone, but he really gets on my nerves sometimes, and I get on his. And it's like a marriage almost. But we are never arguing for anything that's not for the movie, for a scene, for a way to shoot. And this only proves how much he cares for what we're shooting, which is strange from a DOP. Normally they are, they establish a limit. They are responsible for certain things. This guy will go crazy about wardrobe, about anything, I think he takes it as if he was the director, because I encourage him to do it, and he's very helpful.
And a word about Marianne, the bride. How did you visually staged her long descent into hell from the point of view of her character, and the work on colors you you made on.
I know this girl, this young actress, since she was 14 years old, or no, 15 years old, 14 or 15. I know her pretty well. I know her family. She's the sister of the girl in Después de Lucia. So I wrote the script for her. The part was, there's a lot of her in Marianne. The good spirit she has and the willing to help, and at the same time being a little bit naive. It's a character that's very close to her in some ways. Then again, she had to act, of course. I mean, she's never been through all these things. I gotta say that I didn't help her that much. She read the script, she clicked because it was designed for her, I guess. And she's a talented actress, and she did most of the work on her own. I gotta give her that credit. And then, of course, on specific moments, I would point out things, but that descent to hell, it's all on her account. She was good at it.
And of course, your new order is certainly no risk-free entertainment, but at the same time, it is a very compelling movie and tries to reach a fairly large audience using the mechanism of the genre. So, are you trying to avoid the cliche of the art house filmmaker and?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thanks, and I do think it's entertaining, even if it's not a pleasurable experience. It's quite entertaining, and we made a big effort, the editor and I, into the rhythm and the pace of the movie. It should never let you down. It should hook you and never let you go. I hate the art house label because it's a synonym of no one will watch it. It's no business. It's for a few fetishists, that like to know all about everything. Because for me, the best ones like Bresson and Bergman and all of those, I would never label as art house. I would say, they're brilliant filmmakers with a deep knowledge of the human condition, and their movies have been watched by millions of people throughout the years. So to me, that's it. I think a quality film should be able to do both, which is the hardest. Reach a wide audience without sacrificing any of its quality and without following any formula.
All right, so two final questions, more general questions. I would like to ask you, what is your relationship with controversies? Do you ignore them or do you try to deal with them?
I don't look for them. And at the same time, I see them coming. And that doesn't stop me from writing a certain movie. I'm truthful to myself and I do whatever I feel like doing. Even if I know it's gonna get me into trouble. I always prefer more people liking what I do than the opposite. But when they feel confronted and uncomfortable and there are long discussions, even if there's heat, I'm very flattered mostly because that's what happens with the films I love. And back in the day, Luis Buñuel and Pasolini and all my heroes would steer that kind of controversy. So I think it's impossible to do quality work either in literature or music or in whatever discipline. If everybody likes what you're doing and it's not shaking things up, you're doing something wrong, and it will be forgotten sooner than later.
And you've mentioned Pasolini, and my final question is about him on behalf of the Italian audience watching us. And you often declare to be that Pasolini is one of your major sources of inspiration. And I think that you have changed the name of your production company after his film Teorema, which is somewhere on the shelves behind me. And in which way has Pasolini influenced your cinema? And do you think New Order also has something of that kind of anti-bourgeois anger of him?
Probably. I would love to think that if he could see it, he would have, if he was alive, he would have liked it. I'd like to think so. I named the company Teorema because it's a way of reminding myself and everyone at the company, if we ever lose track, that's the right way, you know, that's where we should be leading. He's a fascinating filmmaker because on one hand, there's Teorema that's full of mystery and humor and social comment and everything, fantastic performances. And it's daring because it's not a realistic movie, it's way above that limit. But then he has, what's the name of the other, Uccellini?
Oh, Uccellacci e Uccellini. Yeah.
Ecco, scusami italiano. Provo di parlare, però no, I don't succeed. That's a beautiful movie, you know? So he has that and he has Teorema, and then you see Salò, and it's a complete different story. And then he has the biblical film. So to me, it's one of the most complete filmmakers, complete filmographies. And of course, it's one of the biggest film tragedies that he was killed so young.
Well, thank you for your time, Mr. Franco. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
And I look forward to see your next movie in Venice in a few weeks. So.
Ci vediamo a Venezia.
Ci vediamo lì. Grazie.
Ciao, grazie a lei.